A brutal snowstorm had blanketed the city the day before, leaving a thick, undisturbed layer of white. Now, after a night of plowing and a morning of traffic, the roads were a treacherous soup of gray slush and black ice. Ethan's morning had already gone sideways. Dropping his younger brother off at daycare had put him behind schedule, and the city bus crawled through the congested streets. Inside, the air was steamy and smelled of damp wool and someone's breakfast burrito, a scent that made his empty stomach ache. He tried to focus on the vocabulary flashcards on his phone, a ritual of constant, anxious preparation. His school, Northwood Academy, was a world away from the gritty reality of the city bus. It was a place of manicured lawns, now hidden under snow, and students whose parents paid a tuition that could cover a small mortgage. Ethan was there on a full scholarship, a fact that made him feel like an alien specimen. Few of his classmates would ever find themselves shivering at a bus stop in the pre-dawn cold. The bus finally hissed to a stop 3 blocks from campus. The clock on his phone showed he had 3 minutes until the first bell. He leaped from the steps, his worn boots hitting the slick pavement, and immediately understood he was doomed. A delivery guy on an e-bike, swerving to avoid a patch of ice, shot past him from behind. Ethan's attempt to dodge was futile. He stumbled, catching himself before he fell, but not before a wave of filthy, half-frozen slush splattered across the front of his gray parka. His backpack was hit, too. He tried to brush it off, but his gloved hand only smeared the grime, the wet cold seeping through to his fingers. Walking across the athletic field, which served as a shortcut, Ethan felt a familiar sense of resignation. Not only would he be late, earning him a mandatory period in the security office at the main entrance, but he'd have to stand there coated in street filth, a perfect spectacle of failure for every passing teacher and student. The thought made his skin crawl. Each imagined glance felt like a physical blow. He sighed, a plume of white vapor in the frigid air. It was always the things he feared most that he could never seem to escape. "Hey, Specs." The voice cut through his miserable thoughts, sending a jolt of alarm through him. He knew that voice. He turned instinctively. Leo, a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, was chewing gum with an obnoxious rhythm. He sauntered alongside 2 other guys, one of whom was Dylan, who were lugging a large, wheeled dumpster toward the service entrance. Leo's grin was predatory as he noted Ethan's state, observing that he looked like a stray dog that had lost a fight with a puddle. Ethan just stood there, his lips pressed into a thin line, saying nothing. "Took a spill?" asked Dylan, his expression more neutral than mocking. Of the 3, Dylan was the one Ethan feared the least. He was Noah's older brother, a familiar, if distant, presence. Ethan gave a small nod, his eyes fixed on the ground as they closed the distance. Leo wasn't finished, remarking that Ethan would make a fine, dripping statue for the entrance hall, a welcome sign for all to see. He then made a lazy offer, suggesting that if Ethan called him sir, maybe Dylan would help him out. Ethan looked at Leo, then at Dylan, but remained silent. Leo just laughed, a sharp crack of sound from his gum punctuating the moment. The 3rd boy, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. It was Caleb, dressed in a clean white jacket, looking completely unfazed by the cold. He told Leo to cut it out. Leo then shifted his attention, nudging his chin toward Caleb and telling Ethan he could try begging Caleb for help instead. Ethan's gaze flickered to Caleb, who wasn't even looking at him, and then back to Dylan, the safest option. He mumbled Dylan's name. Dylan simply lifted the dumpster lid, a silent invitation. Ethan understood instantly. He slipped off his soiled backpack and tossed it inside, where it landed next to Leo's. It was a well-known loophole, Students on trash duty could get into the building after the bell without penalty. Leo had clearly roped his friends into the scheme after his own tardiness. Ethan trailed behind them, feeling small and insignificant. The dean of students, a man with a perpetual scowl, eyed the four of them as they wheeled the dumpster through the service doors. He grumbled about needing a whole team to take out one bin. Ethan flinched, but Leo just laughed it off with some smooth talk about school spirit and their class being on cleaning duty for the week. The dean grunted, clearly not buying it but not caring enough to argue, and waved them on with a dismissive "get lost." Safely inside, Ethan didn't dare lift his head. Once they reached their floor, he pulled on his soiled parka and retrieved his backpack from the dumpster. Leo had already vanished down the hall. Ethan mumbled a quiet thanks to Dylan and Caleb. He wasn't sure which of them replied with a soft "no problem" before they walked away. He didn't recognize the voice. He slipped into his seat, bringing a gust of cold air with him. His deskmate, Noah, was tracing the raised lines of a Braille textbook. Hearing Ethan, he turned his head, his sightless eyes aiming in his direction. Noah asked if he had made it if he'd been caught. Ethan let out a long, shaky breath, explaining quietly that he'd nearly been busted, but had run into Noah's brother and his friends. Noah asked what his brother was doing, and when Ethan mentioned the dumpster, Noah understood immediately and chuckled. He commented that it sounded exactly like something Leo would cook up. Ethan wouldn't have dared ask for such a favor. To him, Leo and Caleb were still his crores. A memory from freshman year was seared into his mind. A slip in the crowded cafeteria, his lunch tray flying, and its entire contents, chili and milk, decorating the expensive jackets of Leo and Caleb. The sheer horror of that moment, the sudden silence and all eyes on him, still made his breath catch. Leo had theatrically demanded $400 for the damages, a sum that represented nearly half of Ethan's entire semester budget. The money was never actually collected. Caleb had told Leo to drop the ridiculous demand, but the debt lingered in Ethan's mind, a constant reminder of his otherness. He had spent weeks trying to give them the cash he'd scraped together, but they never took it. The unresolved matter left him in a state of perpetual anxiety. For an entire year, the sight of them made his stomach drop, caught between the urge to run and the compulsion to try and settle his perceived debt. Things had eased slightly when he became Noah's deskmate. He saw the group more often, and the fear subsided into a dull, cautious avoidance. He still rarely spoke to them. Noah touched his wrist, leaning closer and telling him he thought he had something on his face, maybe a hair. He asked if Ethan could see it. It had been itching. Ethan turned to look, gently guiding Noah's head toward the light from the window. He spotted a tiny, fine white thread, probably from Noah's wool hat. He was about to flick it away with his finger but stopped, remembering the morning's grime and the dumpster. He took a pen from his desk and used the cap to carefully lift the thread from Noah's cheek. Noah had been blind since birth. Attending a mainstream school like Northwood was a testament to his family's wealth and determination. Ethan had volunteered to be his deskmate after Noah had, on several occasions, unknowingly rescued him from awkward social situations with his calm presence. The two had formed a unique bond. In private, Ethan's social anxiety melted away, and they talked constantly. Ethan was the top student, Noah the beloved underdog. Teachers tended to leave them be. Noah asked if he'd eaten. When Ethan admitted he hadn't had time after taking his brother to daycare, Noah reached into his desk and pulled out a granola bar. He said he'd figured as much and had brought an extra. Ethan smiled, a genuine warmth spreading through his chest, and accepted it with a thank you. During the quiet of homeroom, with no teacher present, he chewed the nutty bar while studying a map of the United States, the plastic wrapper still warm from Noah's desk. Their shared desk was a fortress. Ethan always made sure Noah had the inside seat, away from the aisle. He guided him to the bathroom and through the chaotic halls during gym class. They knew each other's secrets. Ethan knew Dylan wasn't Noah's biological brother, but a childhood friend who had been taken in by Noah's family and was now, for all intents and purposes, his older brother. He knew they were closer than most siblings. Noah knew Ethan lived with his aunt, that his father was gone, and that his mother had remarried in another state and never came back. He knew Ethan didn't have a room of his own but slept on the living room sofa, his bedding stored away each morning before anyone else was awake. The house was a nice 3-bedroom suburban home, but with his aunt, uncle, their daughter, and now their new baby boy, there was no space left for him. That evening, Ethan dropped his parka at the dry cleaners. It would cost $30, a painful, unplanned expense. As he walked home in the cold, wearing just his school uniform blazer, he reflected that $30 was nothing compared to the $400 he once thought he owed. The thought brought him back, as it always did, to Caleb and Leo. He rubbed his face, walking faster. For the next few days, Ethan's mornings were a frantic race against the clock. On Friday, the daycare opened late and he missed his usual bus. The bell was already ringing as he sprinted across the soccer field. A groan of pure misery escaped him. His lungs burned with the icy air he was gulping down. It was all for nothing. The humiliation of standing at the entrance was something the socially phobic boy dreaded more than almost anything. Late again, he turned to see Caleb approaching, carrying a large snow shovel. He was with another guy Ethan didn't recognize, deep in a conversation that Caleb didn't break, merely tilting his chin in acknowledgement of Ethan. Ethan, lost in his despair, was less intimidated than usual. He just nodded mutely. As Caleb and his friend walked past, Ethan hung back, still agonizing over his impending punishment. A few steps later, Caleb looked over his shoulder. "You coming?" Ethan looked at him, confused. Caleb only had a shovel. There was no dumpster to hide in this time. Caleb raised an eyebrow, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips as he asked if Ethan was scared to come with him without Dylan around. Ethan flinched and shook his head reflexively. Caleb's smile widened, crinkling the corners of his eyes in a way that softened his usually tough expression. Ethan nervously picked at the side of his thumb and then hurried to catch up. He walked silently behind them, feeling invisible as Caleb continued his conversation. As they neared the entrance to the main building, Ethan braced himself for the inevitable questions from the security guard. Then Caleb stopped. He handed the shovel to his friend, unzipped his heavy parka, and took it off. Underneath, he was wearing only a thin white t-shirt. In the sub-freezing temperature, he instantly shivered, goosebumps rising on his neck. Ethan stared, dumbfounded, as Caleb took his backpack, turned it around so the bulk of it was against his chest, and quickly put the parka back on. The jacket was huge and loose-fitting, the kind of oversized fashion that only tall, lean guys could pull off. Ethan thought Caleb could probably fit 2 of him inside it. Caleb zipped it up, took the shovel back, and gave Ethan a look that said, "Follow me." Ethan followed him into the building, his heart pounding. The security guard, the head of campus security this time, glanced at them, saw the shovel, and went back to looking at his phone. Ethan's backpack was pressed against Caleb's stomach, separated only by the thin cotton of his t-shirt. As they climbed the stairs, Caleb hissed about how cold his stomach was. All Ethan could do was watch him, unsure of what to say. When they reached their floor, Caleb didn't stop, continuing up the next flight of stairs. Ethan had to call out, his voice barely a whisper, to remind him about his backpack. Caleb paused, remembering. He turned and held out the backpack. As Ethan reached for it, Caleb lifted it just out of his grasp. "Thanks, Caleb." Ethan blinked, his glasses fogged from the change in temperature. After a moment's hesitation, his eyes fell to Caleb's worn jeans. He repeated, "Thanks, Caleb." With a laugh, Caleb handed him the backpack and continued up the stairs. Ethan hugged the bag to his chest. It was still warm from Caleb's body heat. He held it that way through the entire first period. That day at lunch, Noah called him over to sit with their group. Ethan sat by Noah as usual, across from Caleb and Dylan. Caleb picked at his food, a slice of pizza, then pushed the tray away. Ethan, remembering the morning, didn't dare look up. Dylan asked Caleb if he wasn't eating, reminding him about his stomach issues. Noah turned his head in Caleb's direction, asking if his stomach was hurting. "It's nothing," Caleb said, his eyes flicking to the top of Ethan's head. He added with a small smile that he'd just gotten a chill. At that moment, Ethan's spoon clattered against his tray. He looked up quickly, his eyes wide and alarmed behind his glasses, a look of pure guilt on his face. Noah, hearing the noise, asked how Caleb could have gotten a chill if he hadn't worn enough layers. Caleb met Ethan's panicked gaze, amused by his "I'm in so much trouble" expression. He laughed and replied that he probably hadn't worn enough. Ethan spent the rest of the meal in a state of anxious distraction, his mind replaying the image of Caleb in just a t-shirt in the freezing cold and the backpack he had held for far too long.